Hello, team owners of the 20 Team Premier League. Listen, last night I did send an email out intended for Paul Thompson. It ended up going to the entire league. Um, it's not a terrible thing that this has happened. It's actually helped me move forward with a lot of things that we need to talk about anyway. So, first off, I want to apologize to Kyle. As soon as I sent this email out, Kyle's like, man, you're going to cost me the division. This Gordon possibly going to Paul in a tight game, a very important game for Kyle. And so he jumped on me real quick. He made his points, and his main points is as a commissioner, I shouldn't be trying to establish parity in the league, and especially by the means of colluding with Paul. But basically, Paul being at the bottom of the Central the last couple of years, I was like, man, you might can improve your team. So I did make that suggestion to him, and then you had the complication with Terry. I've talked to Phil Wilfong briefly and told him he cuts a hard deal. But that's the nature of fantasy football, guys. My first knee-jerk reaction was that Phil was probably not being doing the uh, decorum, as Terry calls it, exercising decorum. But Phil was playing hard-nosed fantasy football. Terry knows that now. Um, but at the time, I got caught up in it a little bit, and I had already been bothering Paul. And I apologize to you, Paul, for pushing you on your team or making some suggestions there that you might not have wanted to do. But I'm asked for everyone's forgiveness. It's not that big of a deal, really. It was a big deal with Kyle, and understandably so. You'd have to understand if you looked at his matchup this week with Houston. But everything seems to work out. Terry, I think, jumped the gun a little too in the group, and he realizes that. Looking at it, Phil did a cold hard move. There's no doubt about it, and I have to laugh. I've known Phil for 35 years, and just go to Facebook and look at some of Phil's photos. He's got a snicker about him, and he's a tough dude. So if you knew him like I did, you'd be able to laugh about it. Even Kyle or Terry, you'd be able to laugh about it. Maybe you, Terry, would be able to laugh about it. But neither here nor there. I apologize to everyone because it does seem, as Kyle has discussed with me, that who else could I be doing this with? Well, I promise you I'm not. But I did get caught up, and I'm very guilty in trying to make good with Terry in some way. But it all worked out, and I've seen in this league a lot of times things work themselves out. With all that said, we're going to need to talk about quarterbacks real quick. This has been something in the league all along. It's 32 starting quarterbacks each week, 20 teams. So doing the math, if you take 20 plus 12, that leaves 8 teams that would have one quarterback. It's a matter of choice. I think it's worked out in the league every single year. It's a matter of choice. Do you want more players and just one quarterback and ride with it and play the field and try to score you a second quarterback, or take that big risk without it? Everybody seems to almost get a quarterback, and there's that rare occasion where something happens where you can't have a quarterback, or someone's not willing to give it up. So with that said, I talked to Jake Matthews, and Jake got a quarterback scooped out from under him, and it's really truly, as my knee-jerk reaction in the beginning was, as Phil did a dirty move, but he did an absolute legal move, as tough as it was. And I have a shit-eating grin on my face because I know Phil so well. I've known Jake for probably 40 plus years, and I've seen the look on Jake's face talking about not having a quarterback. And at that time, I think Paul was the league manager, league owner that took that quarterback, scooped it up when Jake really needed one. So there's been some occasions where we have had, a situation where you just didn't have a quarterback to play, but it's super rare. All I can say is the other alternative would be team quarterback. But when you do team quarterback, uh, that's nice. But then I would have to limit it to one quarterback because if there were no backups and everybody took all the team quarterbacks, just like it is now, then there would be no quarterbacks on a given week and on a bye week or something like that. So I've really thought hard along about this and this dilemma with Terry that came up. I've thought about that. I've gone through all the emotions of that whole thing because I care about each and every member. I want you to feel like it's a safe place and all of that stuff. But so anyway, look, it looks like what we're going to have to do here is have a vote in the league. I don't know anything else to do. I'm going to think about how to come up with the poll and make the wording good. But I'm going to say keep it the way it is. Plan for it. If you're going to take that risk and have one quarterback, you might get through it. Tina seems to like to take the risks. She's not doing it this year, but she's taken a big risk in the past. Somehow she's slipped through it. I've watched it happen with her, and others too. Some people can get caught in a bind with it, but it's the only thing I know to do is to have a vote. If we go to team quarterback, and that's where you have the every quarterback on that team from the starter down, uh, uh, we just can't have a limit of two because all the quarterbacks would be gone. There'd be a lot of people without a quarterback quite often. So something I've done to thought about to solve this, and this goes along with the waiver pick, the number one waiver pick that Paul currently has. And that waiver pick does have value, especially at this time of the season when if you were the first to be able to pick and a quarterback became available, you would be able to pick it. And so I believe that someone will always have the first pick, and they should be able to negotiate that first pick, which is what I was pushing Paul to try to do. So in that case, I think a first waiver wire pick, number one pick, is worth a super urgent situation, probably, maybe, kind of like the Terry situation. Could be bargained with the player and such. And then you got the second waiver pick and the third pick. I don't think anything past the third pick is worth anything at all. I think that the third waiver wire pick, if you wanted to negotiate that because you really wanted to pick up a really good kicker, possibly, that somehow fell back into the pool, that maybe had passed their by, and you said, gosh, if I can just lock that kicker in, it's worth it to use to negotiate the waiver wire pick. So and the other person might feel like, they're negotiating a spot to have the really good waiver wire pick. And then also, I'm looking at each team having one trade. That's one trade a year, one trade a season where you can trade for the draft pick the following season. I'll make note of it. If you get in an urgent bind, somebody has two quarterbacks, we can do that. So I may have another short version of this, but basically I personally would like to keep everything the same and add these features in which one could negotiate a waiver wire pick for in-season waiver wire pick, or they could negotiate. It's kind of like phone a friend or something, and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, or ask the audience or whatever, but you would have that one opportunity to trade draft pick, one of your draft picks the next year in order to get a player or someone that you need. And that would depend, the urgency of that player and the value of that player, of course, would depend on what draft pick you were willing to give up to try to make your season work. Happens all the time in pro football, too. Look, I'm getting close to 10 minutes. That is my solutions. Apologize to everyone for colluding, if you will. But I was not. I had very good intentions. Terry's worked hard this season. I definitely know that. He's always right there. He's a great fantasy football player. I want him in the league for sure. Terry, you got to think before you say anything in chat window. You just talk to me and vent if you have frustration. So, all right, love you all. Thank God for you.